anticipating Brandon coming for about a month now, or over a month now, so it's been exciting. Brandon is someone that I've worked with up at the state party. Just last minute, I got notice that our 2024, one of our 2024 presidential candidates would be here. So I'm going to let you gentlemen, like we have until 8:30 basically. So whatever time that you would like to take, although you have first preference for anything. So he's been a great chairman. He's been a great presence up at the state level. What I can say is I really appreciate his professionalism up there. It was one of the very first things that I ever noticed being new to the party and seeing any kind of, party business was that, Brandon, you have that about you. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This is, I think, the second time I've been able to come and talk to Pima in one of your business meetings. The last time was in after 2020. It was related to the election integrity stuff that we worked on with John Brakey. Thanks for having me back again. To kind of preface my discussion or my presentation is that it's kind of shifted over the last couple of weeks, but essentially I'm running for state chair. We are coming up onto the new term of elections where we elect party leadership. How many people here are PCs in Pima? Out of curiosity. So all of you know that we just basically started our term. We just had the organizing meeting in Pima where you elected your officers in the state committee, and then next Saturday we'll all be in Phoenix to elect the officers and do party business and bylaws and some boring stuff. But I want to talk a little bit about myself, which is kind of very similar in the thread of why I'm a libertarian, and more importantly, like why I'm involved in the party and why I actually give a lot of my personal time to the party. I'm an Arizona native. I was born in Flagstaff. I grew up in St. John's, Arizona for the first 7 years, like first grade to 7th grade, and then moved to Eager from 8th grade to high school, graduated. Moved down here moved to Phoenix when I was 19 to go to school. I went to the Art Institute of Phoenix and I got my degree in advertising and stayed in Phoenix. And growing up, my parents were kind of blue-collar Democrats. My dad worked for the state, he worked for ADOT, and then whenever we moved to Eager, he actually worked for the county. He was a county road foreman. And my stepmom was a special ed teacher. And because of that, they voted blue. And for whatever reason, I think in hindsight, a lot of it had to do with 9/11, but I ended up becoming more Republican. And so after high school, I got really involved politically. And I think 9/11 again is kind of the catalyst that made me just really aware of everything in politics. And I hate to say that, George Bush was the first person that I voted for in the election. But I quickly learned back from that lesson, and in 2008, whenever Ron Paul ran, that was really whenever I had my eyes just opened up to libertarianism. And the thing that for me that really did it was Ron Paul would ask the question, what is the proper role of government? And it was an interesting question to me at the time. I was young, I was like 20, 21, and just to have that thought, what is the role of government? And because before that, we're always kind of told what to think about it, growing up. And then as an adult, it's like, well, what do I actually think about it? And this was kind of before social networking and stuff, where the media, the broadcasting was way more powerful than it is now. It has a lot more influence. And so, long story short, I ended up looking up to see who was running for president. I'm an adult, excited about the election, was going to be voting Republican, and there was this new website called YouTube that had all the candidates have channels, and all these candidates had different videos, and it was really awesome because it was just you were able to have this thing that we take for granted now. At the time when it was new, it was kind of cutting edge to be able to interact with the candidates so intimately of what it felt like. And of course, we all know that the best videos were Ron Paul videos. and just hooked and just completely changed my life, and it changed my thought process more than anything, and it really changed how I approach things. I stayed in the Republican Party, voted Libertarian in 2008, Bob Barr, voted Libertarian in 2012, Gary Johnson, still a Republican. 2016 rolls around, I was going to support Rand Paul in the presidential election, seeing that the trend of the Liberty candidate getting shafted by the Republican Party, I just knew the writing on the wall, and I knew I was going to end up voting Libertarian. And so then I wanted to look up who was running the Libertarian Party, and so, gave them a little bit proactive on it, because I didn't know who Gary Johnson was before really voted for him. He was the Libertarian. Started looking into it, and actually came across when they were having a presidential debate. And, at this election, it was Gary Johnson again, John McAfee, Austin Peterson, and they were having some debate, and there's a lot of other candidates, but there was having some debate in a gymnasium, or what looked like a gymnasium, and just not the best quality of production value. Like when you watch the presidential debates of the Republicans or the Democrats, they're spending millions of dollars, and it's like Hollywood and lights, and it's just so fancy, it's mesmerizing. It is like it's so much, and it creates the illusion of up here and we're down here and all that stuff. But outside of that, being a marketing person, I've always had this very eye for perception, and there's so much psychology in branding and marketing and how people perceive you whenever they see your logo or your website or whatever, and it has an effect, and whether we like it or not, that is part of it. And so, I guess that was a big reason why I wanted the party to just be better. So I'm watching this debate, and it was on YouTube, so there was the chat feature, and everyone's kind of commenting. And basically, the consensus was that I had this epiphany where everyone was just like me. No one was in the party. Everyone was in the, independent, Republican, but they were all watching the debate, and probably all of them were going to end up voting for whoever was the nominee. And and everyone was kind of talking smack about the quality of the debate, just because it's the glaring issue. And I just had this epiphany that moment, and that, everyone is waiting for the party to become something that they, in their own mind, aren't embarrassed to join. And we hear it all the time. If you've been around the party at all, it's people, they're like, I'm libertarian, but I don't want to get, you can't win, you can't do this, but I'm libertarian, but I don't want to be associated with you at all. Different variations of that. That's all it is. And so for me, that was like the glaring issue. And so I really just had this come to the Jesus moment in the party, and I said, the party's not going to get better if everyone's just waiting for it to get better. It needs people to get involved and make it better. And so that's what I did. And I switched registrations. I became Libertarian on March 24th, 2016, and quickly, reached out to the state party. They had no idea. I was pretty active politically, like before switching. I did attend the Republican LD 28 meetings, and I had circulated petitions and filed a referendum, and I had plenty of kind of experience to kind of know to be dangerous, I guess. And but basically got engaged, and I was able to become a delegate. I became a delegate, went to Orlando, got engaged in the system, came back, became a PC, and then ran for office in Maricopa County. That was 6 years ago, right? So when I first ran, I actually ran for chair of Maricopa County. And in hindsight, it was kind of silly, because thankfully I didn't win. But the incumbent did, and I ran for first vice chair, didn't win that, ran for second vice chair, got that, and basically was in. I got my foot in the door, and I was kind of getting my training with just the whole process. Served one term as second vice chair, then was elected as chair of the county, and then was elected chair again as a county, which basically brings me to now, where I've had 6 years of engagement in the party, 4 of those years as county chair. County chair of not just like a regular county, like a lot of states have small counties, right? Arizona's a little bit different. Maricopa County is definitely different. We're the second largest voting jurisdiction in the country, and we have more libertarians than a lot of, like, some states, just in our county. So I say that because, you know, unfortunately, when you get involved, you start peeling back the onions, there's a lot of limitations of how we can actually, like, do things. And thankfully, on the county side, I do believe that most of them have, like, a strong share model. And this is where it kind of gets into more inside baseball with the party, where it's not so much principle and philosophy, it's really just mechanics of, like, the organization. And so I came to this realization that I've been involved for 6 years, and there's nothing I can really, like, hang my hat on that I'm really proud about. And there's a lot of stuff I've done, and there's a lot of little things that I've been engaged with. But when I look back on when I first got involved, and I wanted the party to be something that's respectable and that people want to join, I still didn't have that satisfaction. And because of that, I basically said, you know, we kind of struggle because we're a bottom-up organization, bottom-up party, and we are, and I think that's one of our strengths, but we do need a leadership, and we do need vision, and we do need cohesion on, like, where we're heading overall. And that doesn't come just from a single person. I actually think that it needs to be like a consensus type thing, but you need the right leader to help build that consensus. So that is where I kind of come in now with, like, say, the selfish self-promotion, where as I'm seeing the issues that the party has, with my 6 years of being involved as party leadership and having the hard reality of understanding how things get done, and knowing that sometimes if like I don't do something, and I'm sure Drew and a lot of the officers can understand it, if one person doesn't do something, guess what happens? It doesn't get done. And that is a huge problem. And it's a problem that is not easily articulated when we're trying to get people in to grow the party, because it's like you kind of have this thing where, whoa, I really want to get involved in this. Well, I think we can. I think actually you touched on it perfectly, where it's like now is the time for it. Where I don't think that there's ever been a moment where the time for the libertarian is now. So I created a 2-year plan. I don't want to go into specifics with you, but I will make sure that you have the latest version, and that hopefully anyone who wants it, Drew can make it available to anyone who wants to read it. It's TBD whether or not it gets implemented, because that's going to be dependent on how elections go at the state party meeting. But my point is that all of us who are PCs, we represent one of the most important stakeholders of the party. We're responsible of who is leadership, and they're essentially responsible to us as PCs. And I have a lot of respect for everyone who's ever been in party officer, and I don't want to say the current chair or the current board or past boards have failed or done anything, but for me, it's the progress has been insufficient. And I really want to be kind of that person that says, if we're not going to grow over the next 2 years now, then we don't have it. We should just pack up shop. Because and that's the thing, is that we have just been stringing along, not really improving much, keeping things together with Scotch tape, and, you know, all these stupid inter-party dramas that pop up that just derail motivation and make it so hard to get anything done. That can't happen. And so I want to change that by being a certain type of leader that has, you know, radical transparency. And I think that we just need to really be open about everything, conduct everything on the up and up openly, and not have things that are questioned in the shadow. And this is specifically like the forward leadership, which is a problem that we have because we're so small. It's easy for a few people to really take advantage of the entire organization. And so I want to tell another quick story and maybe take some questions, because I have a couple questions I want to hear from you. Is one of the things why I think it's so important that we do this, because I tend to say I want to make the party organized, transparent, and viable. And the story that I say to help justify that deals with Gary Johnson. And Gary Johnson, whenever he first was going to run for governor, he went to the New Mexico Libertarian Party to scope him out. And basically it was a shit show. And he was embarrassed and they didn't have anything together. And Gary Johnson, who wanted to run as a libertarian originally as governor of New Mexico, decided the party wasn't viable. The party wasn't organized. The party wasn't professional. And he went and ran as a Republican, put up like $500,000 of his own money, and he won. That's amazing. But he could have won maybe as a libertarian. And I think that that illustrates a problem where there's so many candidates that actually would want to run as libertarian, good candidates, but because all the bad stuff that we, all the tarnish that we have that we don't really address, makes that really difficult to attract talent. If I had to, one of the ways that I think that, and I guess I could maybe highlight some of that in the plan, because it is very, very robust, and it does go into the 2-year aspect, knowing that as PCs, we have a 2-year term, and that our term basically wraps up with the 2024 election. So we know that we're going to have election 2024. It's so great to hear that there may be potential candidates for that, or maybe there's elections for this year. But regardless, we have to be talking about candidate or elections now, because if we, the time kind of goes into this where the election for next year will be November, primary will be August, but the signatures are going to be due like March or April, right? Mm-hmm. And so and depending on what your office you're running for, you're going to need months to collect those things. So technically, if you want to get down to really serious candidates, if we don't have people identified and at least declared by the end of summer this year, they're not going to have enough time. Because if they declare at least by the end of summer, maybe that gives them 6 months, but even sooner is better. But then it's summer's really hard in Arizona and there's other challenges and so forth. But my point is that no one's thinking about that. And there's specific issues that challenge our ability to get on the ballot, right? And I'm sure people here might be fairly new, but it used to be very easy for us to get on the ballot here. It took just a few dozen signatures. And in 2015, 2016, the Republican legislature changed that, disproportionately impacted our signature requirements. And now it's hundreds, or if not thousands, which isn't bad in and of itself, but it's the way that they figured out. It's just funny. The parties challenged it. We went to court multiple times, went to the Ninth Circuit. It didn't go in our favor. So now we have to figure out how we're going to change, because we've kind of just been waiting, hopefully that a court case is going to do it. But there's never been actually someone focused enough to say, hey, this is actually a big priority. Which, as county chair, I will tell you that that is probably the most important goal I think that we have to have as a party is candidates, because and I'm sure you probably got a lot of emails and questions in the primary or whatever, maybe, who's the candidates? And it's try saying none. That's the problem with the party is that are we a political party, or are we a social club, or are we a debate club? And I'm sure you've heard that too, right? I actually have decided that we are a social club and are a debate club. And I don't mean that to throw shade. I actually mean it as therapy. It's important to acknowledge that, I think. And I actually have said, I actually do view that this meeting next week for the Arizona State Party is a referendum on that. I think that the state committee, the people who are going to be voting, however they vote, is going to determine if we're a social club, debate club, or for a political party. If you vote for me, if I win, I believe that means that we've decided that we're going to be a political party, because the 2-year plan that I have outlined has very strategic and kind of aggressive goals over the next 2 years that I've been publicly talking about, and basically saying that if, holding myself accountable to that, but we need that kind of driver on it. And I have been, I just was reelected to my 3rd term as chair. And I'm hoping that the state community members of Maricopa, who they all supported me unanimously a month ago, hope they continue to support me for state chair. Just because there is some inside baseball stuff with the party that is in flux with that. But I'm also the only one that's openly campaigning, and you guys are the third county that I've been to outside of Maricopa County to talk about these things that I have, because that's part of the goal I want to see is inter-county communication and learning. So many things, or even for this meeting that I'm going to be taking home and stealing, like the welcome packet, you know what I mean? And just having something pre-prepared for that where someone's new that you can give them to that. Like there's so many great ideas that unfortunately we don't have the leadership that's helping us put all those things together. And I think that I just have the unique experiences that I think I'm able to do that. The main things that I want to see out of the party is I want to see more presence like in the media and communications. So I want us to be not only creating like press releases and putting out statements on things on like the state level, but I want to be able to help the county level to do that also. I want to help with engagement in the legislature. So, you know, that's a huge thing that we need to improve on, which I think, Drew, you do a great job with just the ongoing outreach with the board and everything. But on the state side, like we need to do that with the legislature because we have to earn the trust of the public. You know, Mark Victor, when he ran for Senate, you know, if we had multiple candidates on the ballot, it might not have been a big deal, but whenever we have one candidate on the ballot and we're super excited about that one candidate and everyone else is hyper focused on that race and we're not doing anything else, we do come off as a spoiler. And it actually does not benefit us long term because it just creates a lot of resentment. But if we actually show that we're around more consistently and actually like can point to other things where it says, hey, we're not just your spoiling candidate, we're a political party that is engaged in the process doing X, Y, Z, they can't write us off as easy, you know? But the problem is that stuff doesn't exist. And we need someone who can just highlight that it's need, get buy-in from everyone who's involved on the state decision-making level to help create it. So communications, being engaged in the legislature, obviously voter registration is a huge thing. We are, because we didn't have a governor candidate, unfortunately, we didn't have any candidate that helped with our ballot access qualifications. So the only thing that's helping us stay as a recognized party is our voter registration totals. So every voter who's registered as Libertarian is super critical right now. Like we need every single one because we could very well go underneath the threshold and lose our ballot status, which will just create a whole cascade of issues that we do not want to deal with. And then the last one's different for candidates. So working to have someone do candidate recruitment and then also support. I think that not only do we have to identify the candidates, but we need to determine like how as a party we can support them to help encourage people to get involved. I don't know what that could look like yet. It's something that as a party we'd have to decide, but it could involve, you know, providing funding to get signatures collected. Just like we think that's going to have to be a component moving forward, and all the other things, website help, training, resources. I do think that candidates have to have some sort of skin in the game. I don't think that they can just sign up and expect to have all this stuff given to them. But there needs to be some more zero-sum game, like win-win thing. And then the last part, I guess, is what do you want at the party? It's everyone here gets really, really motivated about our philosophy and our principles, and which is great, and we definitely should. But what do you think is like the shortcomings of the party, and what do you think that needs to be fixed? And you don't have to necessarily say it out loud or anything, but as chair, my goal is to figure out those things from everyone. And I would be very, very open and very, very accessible to the county parties, to the voters, because at the end of the day, if we want this thing to succeed, we need to make it bigger. We need to do exactly what Drew's doing on steroids across the state, you know, and we need to, and you're a perfect example because if every county chair was doing what you're doing, it's like we would be growing. My thing is that we need to try to escalate it as quickly as possible because I do think the time is now. I think that just with the speaker selection that we just saw and Kristen Sinema leaving the Democratic Party, it's like the two-party system is just fracturing. And if there wasn't a good time for us like there is now, what better time do we have? So we're kind of in that cool time just because it's right after the election, we can start building energy. And the main goal that I would have is focus on 2023 as organizing, a big push to organizing things, like get the website updated, improved, find, low-hanging fruit from that perspective, and then, do the candidate recruitment, get them all ready, start getting signatures collected, really utilize our data. That's the biggest thing, is that the one benefit that we have from a candidate perspective is that all of our candidates can collect their signature electronically. And so we get voter data from people, and we have this great CRM system. And so basically we need to start doing activities that are reaching out to the voters manually, whether calling them, texting them, sending them a postcard if we don't have the other form of contact, but basically saying, do you want to see a candidate? And we need to somehow score the voters into our CRM system and qualify them as leads. And so when the time comes, we can just send a couple emails and get enough signatures to get someone on the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
The story that happened in Maricopa County is that there was a county attorney who resigned last cycle, and they had a special election for her, or for the vacancy, and the Democratic candidate got all their signatures in one day.
Yeah.
4,000 signatures in one day. Mm-hmm. And because they did that, they sent out an email. They worked the data. They have the relationships where it's you're educated on what's needed, and as soon as I can tell you what's up, you're able to do it. And it took them probably individually a few minutes. But that's the thing that we have to get better at, is that we spend so much time fighting about the libertarian principle, when there's no need to fight about that because it's already right. And the thing that we have right, we don't need to really focus on in terms of our ideology. The thing that we have wrong is our organization. And that's if you look at the Democrats and Republicans, obviously they're wrong on so many issues, but the thing that they outperform us on is organization wise. And so that's the part of them that I want to try to emulate more, not to sacrifice our principles or anything like that, but really just to make us a little bit more impactful and to help us get into a spot where, more people come to us, and then it really has that growth thing that we really want. Because growth is great, and I know that we've had a lot of growth over the last couple cycles, but for the level that we need it to really enact change, it needs to be times 100. So, what am I on time?
Just about 5 to 8.
Okay.
Do you guys have questions?
I do. How do you feel about the represent us people and the ranked choice voting?
I think that overall the party has...
They're not a party.
Right. I would say that the party's perception of ranked choice voting is a positive one. I think, even though there's probably not, there's not an official position on from the party, but a lot of libertarians do like ranked choice voting. And, yeah.
Meaning that you can vote for your libertarian candidate up front.
Well, there's a lot of libertarians who don't. I'm one of those who's against it. But
Okay,
I understand the perception. But here's a little
what
insight.
else.
I went to a meeting where it was a teacher had invited Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Green. Green didn't show up, but we were supposed to talk to this high school class. But my point is that I was kind of shocked to find that the Democrat person who was representing said, "Oh yeah, I was at your convention. I was at the ranked choice voting team." So I think it's very interesting that we have people in the Democrat Party pushing ranked choice voting on libertarians, and I have a whole thing. It's just about time for me to write another article, but yeah. But again, I understand that I mean, Chase Oliver, he's all for it, and yet I'm not. So anyway, yeah.
I understand the concern.
We don't agree, but
I think that I also think that there's a few different formulas that you could use. I think and I could be wrong, but I understand that there might be a couple different ways that ranked choice can work. It really depends on what methodology of ranked choice voting you take.
I'm only looking at what represent us about there. I like what they're saying about, represent people. So that's why I was asking.
give them bread, circuses, and ranked choice voting. That's my
I
kind
think that there are a lot of people who don't vote for us currently would vote for us with ranked choice. And I think that that's probably one reason why Libertarians are sympathetic to it, because you do rank your first choice, your second choice, your third choice, and oftentimes Libertarians are the second choice for many people. And so I think from that perspective, it's like, but I don't really know the subject enough to.
In the politics of hate, we always be the second choice. I mean, with the Democrats and Republicans, as I'm thinking about it, I mean, it would make sense that they're gonna always vote for a Libertarian second, if that were to actually happen.
Right, they would want to vote for it.
Exactly.
Right.
They hate Trump so much, that they'll, or they hate Obama so much, that they'll, or Biden, or whatever he wants. It's-
Leonard Reed, the famous economist, Leonard Reed, the economist, it's not a numbers problem, it's not a selling problem, but a learning problem. So I'm not trying to advocate for us to be a social or a book club, but yeah.
Well, I actually said, there's kind of that debate of like, what's the purpose of the Libertarian Party? Is it to educate or to elect candidates? And I personally think it's both.
Yeah.
And I personally think that we've probably not been doing good on either one.
Yeah.
And so we got to just get better across the board.
Right. Any other questions?
Yes.
Earlier, Brandon, near the beginning of your speech, you mentioned about Maricopa or Arizona being having the most libertarians,
No,
second in the country in some.
no,
category.
I was saying that Maricopa County is the second largest voter jurisdiction.
Mhm.
So there's more voters in Maricopa County than most counties except for LA County. So it's a big county.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry, I misunderstood.
Yeah,
How many libertarians do you have in Maricopa?
we have a little over 20,000.
That's a lot.
It is.
Is there a way that we can get into like Pima Community College or U of A and get that y'all group and Students for Liberty going?
There may be a dollar there already. I know that there's one at ASU. And so there likely is one. One thing that we're trying to do is we're actually trying to get the LP organization at ASU this next year.
Well, it's not hard. You just need an advisor.
Yeah. A lot of it is just learning and just kind of, learning as we go. It's not like there's a manual that the board had that we inherited. And so like, it's kind of the culture I try to establish where it's like, let's all be awkward together and figure out what we want to do.
That's what we do, right?
Yeah, right.
It works out pretty good.
So I like the fact that you have a 2-year plan. That is actually music to my ears. And I know you said that you don't have time to go into it in detail. Is it possible to precede just a couple of bullet points from your plan that you're particularly excited about, or showcase a little bit of what you might talk about more at the convention next week?
So I guess the big thing is that I like to think that it helps us figure out how we achieve our goals. And so I think the party has an issue for, I don't know how long some of you guys have been involved in the party, the actual party culture, but I've been involved for like 6 years, which feels like 160. But basically the culture is, it's actually very hyper-focused on the office positions. It's like, because, and it's actually maybe not as bad here in Arizona as it is in some of the other states where there's like a million counties, And so it's like, everyone's a county chair. But it basically, there's like this culture problem, I think, where it's, I'm going to be the secretary, I'm going to be the treasurer, I'm going to be the vice chair. And then it's like, who's fundraising? Who's knocking on doors? And it's like that there's actually specific job functions that go undone. And so in the plan, I identified 8 of those that are not officer positions. And the way that I think that we would achieve that is that the board essentially would need to hire or recruit or whatever specific people to handle those specific things. The way that the party has tried to accommodate that in the past is that, and I disagree with this, but 2 years ago at our meeting, we updated our bylaws and we have job descriptions for some of the officer positions. And so right now, if you're the first vice chair of the state party, you're responsible for candidate recruitment. And if you're the second vice chair, you're responsible for legislative outreach. I understand the intention of what they were going for. It just didn't work. I mean, the term proved that it didn't work. The candidates who got those positions, if they're not going to do it, they're not going to do it. I think the better way to do it is having a plan and saying, okay, you know, as everyone's probably aware, you know, there's a financial issue with the state party that we have to overcome. And so like fundraising has to be a really, really big focus. And so we need a fundraiser. And so then we have communications, we need a communications director. And we kind of have, and I don't, again, this is a factor of like just how we've been as a party where it's like we start with what you know, we pull from within. Sometimes not everyone has the skill sets needed for certain jobs. And so you get someone who's like, is not a writer, and then they're supposed to be the secretary, well then that causes issues. But then if you need someone to be like writing blogs or writing posts or press releases and they can't write, and they're the secretary, it's like, then it doesn't get done, and then nothing gets done. And that's how I view the party. It's like I kind of do have I'm very optimistic, but I'm very kind of, I guess I don't know what the right word is because I don't want to say I'm negative about it, but I'm very real about my dissatisfaction with how the party's been. And I recognize that I've been involved in a leadership position with some of those things, but like I said, a lot of it's bandwidth issues. And when I was reelected as chair, I said one of my commitments was delegation. That like I might want to delegate. I can't be the only one that's doing everything. And because if I'm out, then it's like the party's supposed to disappear. Well, then that's horrible. And if that's the case, then I should just leave now because why do I have to stick around if that's the outcome? And I don't want that. And so that's why I'm putting my name forward. I am putting my, neck on the line. Essentially, I'm saying this is what I want to do. I will be held accountable to it. I will have monthly meetings. I will commit to having updates to the state committee. If the other person who I think is going to be running wins, it's like there's going to be shadow silence, and we might as well just like close our eyes and wake up in 2 years because the party looks exactly the same because the stuff's not going to get done. So it's kind of heavy, but I do appreciate you for your time, and hopefully I will be down here more as state chair, and if not as county chair from Maricopa County.
Okay, great. Thanks, Brandon. Well,